Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for joining the session. My name is Ingo Philipp. I'm an evangelist at Tricentis. And guys, I'm more than happy to have that person next to me today. His name is Eran Kinsbruner. And Eran, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure. Great event.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, by the way, we are currently at Tricentis Accelerate in Vienna, so that's one of the biggest continuous testing conferences in Europe. And that's the reason why we have this discussion. So Eran, first of all, it would be great if you could say some words about your person. What are you doing so that the audiences knows something about you?
Sure. So I'm the software and director and software evangelist at Perfecto. It's a cloud-based company for testing mobile and web testing in the cloud. What I love to do for a living, most of my career was in testing, software testing, and I like to break software. That's what I like to do for a living. I like to break software, found issues, mostly on mobile apps, but also for web. And I'm happy to talk about continuous testing and the growing importance of continuous testing in today's world.
I really liked the way you pronounced it, right? Or you said it. You break software. Michael Bolton once said, "You don't need to break software. The software is already broken." Right?
It's easy to break software because it's, by definition it's broken. Yes, I agree. I agree.
Now, the reason why we have you here is you just recently released your new book. It's all about continuous testing. So it would be great to first let the people know what you actually mean by continuous testing. So the term is out there, everybody talks about it, but what is it?
Sure. So the book that I just recently launched, together with Tricentis, by the way, is Continuous Testing for DevOps Professionals. And the term continuous testing means that you need to continuously validate software, provide constant feedback back to the developers upon any code change you are doing. And even if you're not changing code, but there are any market events, new platforms are coming up, new production issues are being discovered, you want to be able to continuously validate them, identify issues, and also fix them quite fast. That's at the heart of DevOps. If you don't do it, DevOps is very slow for you, and it may be kind of abusing the term DevOps.
Yeah.
Continuous testing enables DevOps.
That's right. So you don't reduce then continuous testing, as far as I understood your definition of continuous testing, to automation. Is that right?
Right. Automation is one means to testing software, but continuous testing is much more than test automation. It's all about fast feedback, analysis, dealing with all the goals and objectives of software delivery in general. So when you're doing continuous integration, it's also part of continuous testing because we're doing build acceptance and doing many things. So it's a bigger thing than just automation.
Okay. And in this book, you then describe certain techniques, how to get there. You describe the challenges you want to resolve, especially in enterprise organizations. So what are these challenges you see out there?
Sure. So the first section in the book is just about continuous testing, defining continuous testing, how to measure it, how to tackle it from an orchestration perspective, your CI/CD, the pipeline itself, how you manage it. And then you drill down into the mobile and web specific apps. So I think today, one of the biggest challenges in continuous testing is, one, to identify what you automate, because it's all about having a stable pipeline. When you're doing continuous integration as part of your continuous testing, if something is broken and not because of the right reasons, you are blocking the entire pipeline, you are blocking the entire release chain. So making sure that you automate what's important, and automation is not just about the testing, it's the environment setup, everything, okay? Then sustaining it, maintaining it, measuring it, okay? And that's a very big challenge, to measure how you're successful. You want not just to be continuous testing ready, you want to be continuous improvement ready. So you act upon big data and analyze and improve your entire processes, so you are maturing your DevOps eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. So I fully agree. So as Lord Kelvin once said, right, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it.
Definitely.
I think that the big question now is, how do you measure it? So what are the top 3 metrics out there for you in order, for example, relating to a stable and robust or resilient CD and CI/CD pipeline, for example?
So there are many measurements. And by the way, there is a chapter when I work together with Tricentis, measuring and mapping the entire continuous testing, I would say, maturity model. So Tricentis actually provided me some nice guidelines on how to measure that. So it's in the book itself.
Okay.
And you can think about even the percentage of test automation, even though it's very like abused term, okay, do I have 90% automation, 80% automation? It's good, but the automation, again, if you're automating the right tests, it means something. If you're just doing automation for the sake of it, it's not really really relevant. Next is how stable is my CI, my pipeline? You know, how many broken builds do I have and why do I have broken builds? Okay, how much time I spend on improvement and innovation, reducing the backlog compared to, you know, fixing defects, running manual tests, or setting up things manually, okay? These are just few metrics that you can think of. I have a large list of metrics that you can divide because, you know, a DevOps team is a team which consists of both developers, testers, product owners, ops, many practitioners. And when I'm talking about continuous testing and DevOps, there are many measures that impact these different individuals. So I'm actually tackling a few of these also inside the book.
Okay, so when you're talking about a DevOps team, are you talking about a product development, an agile team, or a squad as it is known in the Spotify model? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So how do you handle that on the enterprise level? So, you know, on the enterprise level, you have several departments. They are still siloed to some degree in those departments. You usually have a lot of independent or dependent product teams. So how do you handle the way all those teams, you know, make use of practices, make use of tools? So what's the best way to manage that huge process?
So it's a great question. I think if you're going back to the previous question about challenge, when you're talking about enterprise DevOps, that's one of the biggest challenges because different teams will use different processes and different technology. This is the analogy of people, process, technology. So mature enterprises that are able to figure out the glue between people, process, technology across different silos are very advanced in the maturity curve for the DevOps pipelines and software releases. When they're still working in silos, then when you're trying to integrate different software from different products, things break.
Yeah.
You know, this, we have also, again, going back to the book, I have a full chapter about the Big Bang, you know, when things are being integrated at once and not in a very synchronized way between different silos, things break. And this is what blocks maturity, DevOps maturity. So I think, I can give you an enterprise that I'm working with. So they actually have a software automation architect, you know, that oversees the entire software pipeline and is responsible for looking at the technology that serves the entire organization. And he's saying something, software or technology as a freeway, okay? And in freeway you have cars that are moving fast and slow, but you also have some toll roads, right? You need to pay something. So he's mixing and matching technology, open source, free tools, and tools that you need to pay for. But at the end of the day, they all work together under one framework that can serve the entire enterprise. And that's when people, process, technology combine together, come together into one software release.
I love the analogy, to be honest, of the freeway. So the toll stations then tells me that you also need governance to some degree, right, in order to keep it going, to keep the flow, right, of your product delivery at the end of the day.
Definitely governance, software updates, you know, feature requests as well, because each organization will have its own unique requirements. So definitely governance, and enterprise are very good at governance in general, so they need to govern also their software testing mechanism, and even if it's open source, by the way, it still requires some governance because you don't like drink from the hose of any check-in or pullback that you will see in the open source community. So governance is a very important word here.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with that. You've mentioned several times, you know, DevOps already, and said, well, it's kind of a mixture between people, processes, and tools, right?
Yes.
And I see it in exactly the same way, right? So DevOps for me is a cultural movement, right? And I think that was also the reason why that movement even was created by Patrick Devois back in late 2007, early 2008 or something. And he did it by saying, where we are right now just sucks, right? Because of all those, you know, mismatches and misconceptions between all those people along the whole CD and CI pipeline. Right. And then he mentioned it multiple times that, you know, creating a healthy culture, a corporate culture, including development, including testing, including business, including operations. So that's the hard part. But he says maintaining the culture is even harder. So do you have any suggestions how to do that?
So definitely it's a hard challenge, and maybe in my third book I can address it. But obviously maintaining software, culture, people, technology, all of this is a very hard thing to do, especially in today's digital transformation. We see plenty of new technologies coming up, AI, machine learning, skills that are currently varying between different silos in these big enterprises that we've just mentioned. So I think that organizations need to keep up in a way. They need to have, maybe we'll see even specific roles being introduced into the DevOps world today that are all about maintaining and maybe keeping up or even growing existing skills, because I think today, and that's at least my personal opinion, DevOps today is a very, I'd say, precious goal and objective for many organizations, but it's very hard for them to reach the goal. And I think it goes back to the people, right? To their skill set, to their mindset. And I think we need to change that. And maybe when in a few years ago there was the digital officer role, etc. Maybe we can think about some DevOps role, which is all about keeping up, maintaining, measuring, applying continuous testing, continuous improvement within the entire organizations, working and matching between silos within these teams. So I think there is a missing role in my mind today that kind of addresses all these tough questions that we are seeing today that actually blocks the entire software release velocity.
Absolutely, and I see it once in a while. So to have those not DevOps engineers, really DevOps teams in companies that are basically overarching teams, horizontal layers of all those vertical layers of department in these companies, right? Managing the practices, managing the tools, giving guidance to these teams, not just for testing, also for development. So I absolutely see that point. Now you mentioned the skill set, right? So the tester, developer, so every person needs to adapt to the change. And it is often said we need to rethink, we need to reconsider and re-engineer, especially software testing. So how do you see the future role of a software tester in those fast-paced development environments?
So I think that's a wonderful question, and I'm attending many conferences. I speak with practitioners, and we've seen the evolution of software test automation, test engineer, SDETs, right, software developers in test. Today, DevOps teams are doing testing. They're responsible. Everyone is responsible for testing.
Yeah, we all have the same finish line, right?
Exactly. Everyone wants to release software in the highest quality possible. I think that today software testers have the biggest opportunity compared to developers. Developers are developers, and they are very prestigious, and they have very important goals. Software testers in today's DevOps world have a bigger opportunity to grow their skills, to grow their importance, especially when you see things such as machine learning and artificial intelligence, smart testing, smart reporting, smart analytics, you know, in the digital era of mobile, web, IoT, these kind of technologies. So I think if today's testers, test automation developers will embrace the new machine learning technologies, see how they can leverage existing tools, by the way, open source solutions, and see what's broken, and try to leverage these new trends around machine learning, etc., and bring a new layer of smart and I'd say advanced capabilities on top of these open source tools or even commercial tools. I think it will make them the new champions in the DevOps team. And the developers, by the way, would not report to them, but will definitely honor them in a much greater way.
Yeah. I really like it. So you essentially then talking about some kind of a data-driven approach to testing, right? So we're heavily influenced by data from production or by data regarding about your CI and CD pipeline or all the artifacts you have in your test case portfolio. And basically you have those machine learning or algorithms or AI in general that helps you to improve your testing, right, in an incremental way. That is what you're talking about.
Definitely,
right?
You know, when you're executing continuous testing, you know, continuous testing can run. That's continuous, right? It runs every code change, every commit. It means that it generates tons of data, piles of test data. You know, I have a cron job running my Jenkins on a mobile native application every hour, okay? I already have more than 20,000 test cases over the last month or so. So imagine 20,000 tests, and you want to analyze, you know, a specific trend in your test result. It takes ages if you don't have a smart way of analyzing it. I'm talking with customers who takes 72 hours to just go over a regression suite. In a DevOps mature world, you can't work like that. You need a very smart test algorithm, smart test analysis engine that could figure out what's going on per each regression, per each CI job, and provide you the fast feedback. That's all about continuous testing.
Yeah, and I fully agree with that because I also see that tools in general out there, I'm not just talking about any kind of machine learning algorithm, they really amplify, enhance, or intensify good testing, right?
Exactly.
So that is what they do, and Michael Bolton, I think, puts it always this way. And I think you once wrote a book together with Angie Jones, is that right?
Yes.
Because I just now a quote she once said in my mind. She said, "When technology advances, so do our testing approaches need to advance." Right?
Yeah.
But she always says, "Okay, go back to the basics. Still go back to the basics and remind yourself." About the essentials, the game you are playing, about software testing, right? So that you are basically an information service. And I've tried to put that out or to point it out to get in my talk, right? You shouldn't forget about that. You're just an information service, not just you an information service, to provide technical information about the risks to your developers, to your product owners, so that these people then can make their decisions, like business decisions, shipping decisions, right? And you're saying data and a data-driven approach, that is what accelerates that process.
Definitely. Love Angie Jones. She has plenty of great ideas, and curiosity. A good tester is a very curious one, a one that always searches for the unknowns, because what's known, all the green past tests are not a waste, but okay. We take them for granted.
Yeah.
We are looking for the reds. We are looking for how to break software, right? And you said that it's easy.
Yeah.
Okay. So we always, as a testers, we always need to find new ways to address, as a user, right? As a user would try to use the software. You need to always try and use the software the same way.
That's a good point. I mean, addressing the user. So you really need to know also as a tester for whom you are building your product, right?
Exactly.
So you need to know your stakeholders.
Yeah.
And there's also that sometimes I see testers lacking that information, right? Not even trying to grab that information, but it's so much of importance because I always say, well, the reason why we create software is to solve problems of our customers, right?
Right.
And our software is just a solution to their problems, and that's all there is. And if the problem isn't solved by our software, the product doesn't work, right? So you really need to know, guys, for whom you're building your product.
Definitely.
Now you've mentioned Angie Jones, and I think you're not the only person who loves Angie Jones. It's the same with me, Guy. Now she's an automation advocate now at Applitools, I think, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
what was the book about you wrote together with her?
So she was part of a distinguished group that I worked with on my previous book called the Digital Quality Handbook, and it was she was talking about shifting left testing, test automation, taking like the basics of agile testing, if you like. So I worked with her on how to move as much testing to the build process, to the developers, putting responsibility of quality in their hands. And by the way, she's still preaching about that in her current talks. So that was her piece and contribution in the previous book.
Ah, that sounds fantastic. So I have to grab that sometime
Yes.
to read that. You've now mentioned shift left. So everybody talks about the shift left. What about the shift right? And what about things like testing in production? So what's your take on this?
So I think that today, I did mention shift left. If you want to be fully DevOps and you want to have a real high quality product, there is no shift left and shift right. It's continuous testing. And continuous testing goes from the left to the highest right that you can think of.
Yeah.
So you do continuous testing until production, and you do monitoring in production, and you deliver back the feedback from production back to your pipeline, back to your developers. If something breaks, you can do it through SDKs, real user monitoring agent that are bundled with the apps or whatever, things that you can embed in your application.
Yeah.
So continuous testing doesn't stop or doesn't go left and right. It goes either ways and all the time.
That is a perfect closing statement. And I think we need to close now this session. Eran, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much.
Same here, Ingo. Thank you.